Fusing all up on my computer. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. This is Mac with Veterans Achieve Business Systems and the Mission Rewired Mastermind. Today we have Harold Kiefer from the Hitch Corner. Uh, he sells everything that your truck and your vehicles need, hitches, trailers, and all the other doodads that you want. Fishing pole rod holders. That's an inside joke. Harold and I have been talking about it for a while. Um, a big part of the talk today, and Harold, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Tied into the chapter that you are leading on franchising and licensing with Achieve Systems, I think people really want to understand whether it's them joining somebody else in their business, or they have a business they think other places, other markets should be marketing. So I'm gonna let you start. I do have uh, a list of questions, just my own curiosity that
Sure, you can.
I want to follow up on as we progress. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the Achieve Systems Biz Conference is being held on October 24th and 25th in Denver, Colorado. Um, we hope to see you all there. I put the link in the chat, and we have my cohort, Sonia Bordeaux, uh, and she will be officiating the Tampa, Florida version. I believe that's the first week of February, Sonia.
February 6th and 7th.
Okay, can you make sure you put the information down so that people that are watching the recording can join
Yeah.
that? February in Tampa is a lot better than Denver in February. So, Harold, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Mac. Yeah, your first question, I think, is really comes down to first of all, what you have and what you want to do. So there's licensing and there's franchising. Easiest way to distinguish is franchising is going to be it's like a turnkey system. It's very set up, all the processes, everything you look. First one we all think of obviously is a McDonald's. You walk into McDonald's, every McDonald's literally looks the same. Pricing is the same for the most part, but it's everything is very, very specific. It's controlled. You want absolute control over the entity. Whereas with licensing, it's more of if you own something, so any intellectual property that could be a product, that could be a business, that could be educational material, training material, literally anything that you have created that you own that we believe we can replicate, and more importantly, that we hope that someone else can utilize to allow us to get residual income. And so what we do is we kind of just figure out what do you have, what do you want, and then we just try to figure out how can we utilize that to get your name out and to make money for it. Because that's one of the big things with licensing, especially if you're trying to ramp something up. If you have all these entities running with your brand name, well, the brand experience, your brand name is going to grow rather quickly as well, if that makes sense.
It does. So, how, we would all like to believe that our idea is one in a million, and that everybody needs our widget. What factors, what's the realistic approach to analyzing whether you want or you should step up into duplicating your process?
Yeah, great question. I think there's a lot of research that has to go on, right? I think you have widget X, whatever that widget may be. You want to go out and you want to start Googling. You want to ask Chat GPT, I've got this. Who else has it, right? And more importantly, along that lines is if I have that widget if it's a true product, let's say it's this phone, do I have the patent to it? Just because I have something doesn't mean that I really own it. So need to have proof of that. Same thing with like my business. I trademark the logos. I trademark, that kind of stuff. You trademark processes. So the key is you got to make sure you own it. You can have the greatest, idea in the world, but if you start to go out in the world and start spreading this, there's some smart kid out there, or guy or woman, and they go, wait a second. They go and trademark this name, and all of a sudden they're running with your product. And so, they can then take advantage on the backside. So first you need to make sure you own it. Number two then is to find out, you hit it on the head, is this a viable solution for someone? And who is that someone? If your solution is only going to benefit two people per se, well, it's really not relevant, meaning from the perspective of, it can be expensive to go through this process. Franchising much more so. That's a big difference, by the way. Franchising will be 5 to 10 times, if not more, expensive than ever doing a license. But regardless, you don't want to waste time doing stuff if there's no end game out there. And so you do. It falls on you, first of all, to do the research. Or, if, we get down the line, we'll talk about this, but if you were to hire me to help you license, obviously it falls on me to try and help. But I generally won't even allow us to partner being a license. I'm not going to ask you to pay me if I don't really believe that the product or that there's value in this. I don't want to waste somebody's money either. Because you hit on the head, Mac. We all believe we have the greatest thing in the world, right? But if we can't really justify that or see a true end game, that's a tough game to, tough pill to swallow. So I'll generally say, let's do some more research. I'll do a little research on the backside, make sure I understand what you're trying to do, and let's see if it's a viable thing to franchise or license at that point.
Well, in the processing and doing the research, how does somebody know? And that, it's funny. I've had my logo for 35 years probably. And that I went to a graphic designer. I kind of told her it was a Marine Corps thing, a nickname thing, and it went through. I had somebody a year ago said, "Oh, I've seen that logo before." I can't find it.
Right.
I don't know if they saw mine 20 years ago. How do you go about recognizing that you actually have the logos and have I know that slogans and catchphrases are
Right.
a big deal. Like
It's going through the trademark process. I mean, truly, if you want to own it, it's going through the trademark process. And so if you hire someone, now you can do a lot of the work yourself. You can do search, you can search on that term, you can search for the logo. They'll go more in depth if you hire them to do that. Meaning there's patent lawyers, there's trademark lawyers, they're all out there to do it. But even a simple trademark is going to run you about $1,500 bucks to trademark. And the going thing is, and we'll just use the Hitch Corner as an example. They want me to and I've already done it, but they wanted me to trademark the name Hitch Corner. But then also, like you were talking about, they also want you to trademark the logo. So that way, when you're getting out and you're utilizing it, your brand awareness is always yours. But there's work to be found. You hit it on the head, though. You've already looked and you can't find it. That probably means, even if someone might be using it, if they're not really making anything off, I mean, if you can't find it, it's probably not worth a whole lot of time to keep looking for it. The issue becomes if you do find it. Now, then you have to hire a lawyer to do cease and desist. And so again, you want to make sure that they're doing something with it, again, before you waste money, trying to stop someone from using it that's really not affecting you per se.
well, and all of us are business owners, and we all know that the expenses can just eat you up. It's the nickels and dimes, and the people want you to do 10 times what you really need to do. How do you determine what is realistic? And because if you don't do something and somebody comes back, it probably could bite you even harder.
Yeah, I mean, I guess first and foremost, kind of the rule of the trade, and meaning anything you're going to try and make money off of is you need to own it. So, I mean, your first thing is I do believe you need to, if you're going to make a run at anything, trademark is your very first thing. At least trademark your logo, trademark your name. If you have, just like you asked, we all think we have the greatest widget. Well, if you think you have a great widget, you got to patent it. Right. And Jim would be the great guy to talk to on that, but he's going to say the same thing, and
You're talking about Jim Wilkinson?
Yes, I'm sorry, Jim Wilkinson. Correct. Exactly. And that's one thing I always tell people is talk to the guys that deal with that stuff. I will always tell people, I've got trademark lawyers, have a chat with them. They're not going to charge you at least to talk, because they'll be honest too. They're going to say, this is what we probably need to think about trademarking. This is what I would recommend. And now you have a dollar figure in front of you to say, do you want to run with this? And so the key with anything, whether it's an educational product, whatever, is just knowing that you own it. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to trademark everything, but you need to make sure that you have a process in place of showing that you've created it, you've utilized it. Maybe you presented it at, different events. Maybe you presented on Mac's podcast. It's like you want to have proof that you've done something with it, so that if something comes down on the backside, you can say, I did own that. Now there might be some other issues there, but at least you want something, tangible to say, yes, here's all my notes. This is when I used it first. These are all my notes of creating it. You can still help yourself and do things with licensing without a true trademark. It's just not always in your best interest.
Okay. I don't even know how many thousands of franchises are out in the workplace. And you had mentioned, the McDonald's and those things that we're more familiar with. What is there a basic cost if somebody is looking at joining forces with somebody else? Now, I'm sure McDonald's is $1 million or
Right. Yeah. So, it's kind of crazy. I'll tell you what the one that blew me away is Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A. Now, granted, you have to go through a whole process to get to this step, but Chick-fil-A is $10,000 to get a franchise. Now, that doesn't mean that you're also, paying for a lot of investments on the building. But Chick-fil-A always owns the land. They're like McDonald's. They always own the land that you're on, is my understanding. So the cost can be relatively lower in certain circumstances. Chick-fil-A is probably one of the ones because the ROI is ridiculous. If you can get in, there's good money. But like, for instance, if you look around, and I'll give you just some examples that I've come across, a dog grooming service, a mobile dog grooming service, that's going to cost you like $60,000 to get into. And then you have backside money, and then you're always paying residuals. You're paying a 6% royalty fee off your sales. You're paying a 2.5% for a marketing budget. There's probably a tech fee. So it gets expensive, whereas on a license may be as simple as $5,000-$10,000, and then maybe only like 2 to 3% on royalties. But there's generally not a marketing budget, because you're not really allowed to get too crazy with helping licenses with marketing, because then that puts you into the franchise arena. So licensing can make it's substantially less expensive. You're working off the other people to run with it. You're giving them your idea. My best example, I'll give you the Hitch Corner. So I have all the processes in place for the Hitch Corner, but I'm not going to make you build a Hitch Corner with 2 bays and everything else. You may have a muffler shop that already has it. Perfect. The buy-in's fairly low. I take my monthly, percentage off the sales, but you can get in $20,000 and you're running and you don't have any extra investment. It's already there, but I'm helping you to increase, revenue streams by adding trailer hitches, truck accessories, RV accessories, things that they could do, but you'd never buy in at the level I get to. That's kind of what I provide them, as well as we come in and help the training of how to do this install, how to do this gooseneck hitch, fifth wheel hitch. So to answer your question, truly, we could be as little as 5,000 up to, you hit it on the right. I think McDonald's is like $1 million buy-in, I believe. And you have to show that you have like 2 million in the bank on the backside, or the ability to get $2 million. So it's all relative as to where you want to go and really how deep you want to get into this whole process.
From my background selling professional photo and video equipment for 50 years. It wasn't really franchising as much as people were becoming dealers for a certain product. Maybe they would have the exclusive for ABC brand. But they were still under certain obligations to represent it, not to go. A big thing in the photo industry, especially when the internet happened, was MAP or minimum advertised pricing. The internet really disrupted the advertising market, and there's software out there that if somebody would go below MAP by 1 cent, other competitors had the software that automatically went below their price, and you'd get into these bidding wars that disrupted, especially the smaller dealers that did not have that capability of the internet reach. Does licensing work in a similar fashion? Everybody is doing the same thing as far as what they're putting out in public and what they're saying a price in the product is?
It really comes down to how you word your license. It depends on how specific you want to be. I would say the answer in my case is yes. And kind of like you were talking about with your license, you dictate, okay, what's your territory? Do you get the whole city of Denver? Do you get the whole state of Colorado? What are you constrained by pricing? And the answer is generally yes, because, with all due respect, you don't want to bastardize the price, right? And if one guy, you hit on the head, if one guy does it, then why would the next one not do it? So you need to have that in place. And also, like you said, okay, do you get exclusivity for everything? Or is it non-inclusive? Most licenses are going to be non-exclusive, meaning I'm going to let Mac have Evergreen, and I'm going to let Sonya have Tampa, and Maggie gets Denver. Does that mean there can be some crossover? Absolutely, but you're trying to constrain those areas. But it all comes down to how you've worded your license. If you don't do it correctly, it's gonna crash and burn. If you let it be a free for all with pricing, one, why would I even do the license? Number two is it can't possibly succeed. So you definitely need to, that becomes in that checklist for licensing. What's our price model gonna be? And then you also have to have in there the empowerment and the punishment. If Sonya all of a sudden is now undercutting everybody, what do we do? Do we take it right away from her? Is there a penalty? It's again, how do you handle it? But that's why we have an agreement, right? You have to be very, very specific on every level to cover every potential option that's out there, truly.
Well, and I heard, horror stories where, people like Samsung and Sony would, try to enforce MAP pricing, and dealers were coming back and saying, "Well, this is my price. I'm just tying it in," and they would normally win as long as it wasn't advertised on the internet. If they did,
I mean, you could sell it in house at that price.
Yeah, you could not. I cannot tell you
Correct.
what you're selling something for, but as the manufacturer, I could tell you what you could advertise it for. But if you wanted to give it away when somebody walked into your shop, that's up to you because you're not making a public spectacle of it.
Absolutely. And that's so from on the Hitch Corner side, I have a lot of manufacturers I deal with directly, and you hit it on the head. If you post it on a website or any place, if you go below that map, they'll give you 2 warnings, and on that third warning, they're going to say you no longer can carry my product anymore. So it becomes a big deal, But then the problem is you got Amazon on the backside where these guys don't even know where they're getting product from,
I know.
and so
We would track. We actually had people that would track and would find those people, and they were offshore people that the price in another country may have been different, that less shipping costs. And I just bought a piece of art, and after I paid the company, I had to pay customs to get it in
Right.
memory. Yeah,
Yeah,
what
right.
is this? Yeah, nobody told me about this.
Right, exactly. So
So,
yeah.
and the other thing that happens, and we recognize a lot of, and I think it's more prevalent since the internet came along, is out of state tax, and that if you're shipping something to Texas, you as a retailer don't have to charge for it. But if it's being a business write-off, the person buying it is responsible to pay that tax. I've had people get slapped by Internal Revenue because they saw that they had written off $30,000 worth of lights, but then they never paid the sales tax on it. So there's so many hidden things. Is that part of what you do with your guidance tied into the franchise?
There's definitely, I definitely will put you in touch with people that know the answer and how to handle all that for sure. Not my expertise, but you hit on the head. And the answer actually comes back, generally speaking, the company that sends it has to pay their portion of tax to Texas as well. And it becomes complicated to say the least. So, but that's all, but it's all based off of, certain states have different deals. I don't think it's been enforced forever. I mean, I know the threat's been out there for years. I'm not sure how much enforcement's going on that one, but I don't have a good answer for that. So,
Well, I know that the Chamber of Commerce, the National Chamber of Commerce, and the different retailer associations have been fighting it because every industry has their top 5% of the industry that are in a position to play those kind of games. But not everybody understands what they have to do to deal with it. And
right.
I actually saw New Mexico, and I don't know if they still do it, but they actually, on any type of a state bid, uh, a local business had a 5% advantage of any out of state company. So I think people are trying to fight it, but these are all the different types of rules when so often we don't understand them when we get involved. And then we're saying, well, how is that possible? I should be able to do what I want. And, I live here, I'm paying taxes, business taxes. Why don't I get a break?
Right. Right. Yeah, it is. Sonia, what's your question?
Well, since our mastermind is mainly, for veterans, first responders, my question is, do you have any veterans programs, low cost franchise licensing programs that will help them get into their marketplace? Because although I've heard a lot of the costs that you've mentioned are quite high. And, I know from my own research and working with veterans and clients I've had that there are veterans licensing franchising programs out there. So I'm wondering, do you have that as part of your business model that you can work with veterans and first responders? Because that's what the primary audience of this group is.
Sure. Yeah, so for the franchising, Andrea Dobkin is where I'd push to, and I don't know if they have anything specific for veterans or not. I wouldn't say that with through Achieve we have anything set up with it, specifically to veterans, but what we've done though is we have it down to $5,000 is what it takes to get me to help you through the licensing process. That means literally from step A to Z, which we think is a fairly inexpensive way to get you what you need. That even includes the licensing agreement. Now, I will always tell people they should still go to a lawyer at the very end and make sure everything's crossed. But we give them the templates, and that's even with contract agreements, meaning like for employee agreements and stuff. So I would say my answer I would kind of say is yes, but I wouldn't say it's specific to veterans. But I believe what we've come up with makes it very economical to help anyone license their intellectual property, as long, and I'll come back to what we talked about with Mac earlier, as long as we all feel that it is a viable source to generate revenue.
Okay, so if you have this licensing, do you have a website, or I just see your email and your contact? Do you have a website
Achieve
with
license,
this information?
achievelicensing.com is where they can go, and they can also
Okay.
that basically they can reach out, we can get contact, and we can start to chat. And you know, my time is free from that perspective. I will always sit down and chat, see what you have, and discuss, you know, what's our viable option. And I've had cases right away where it's like, yeah, you're definitely in the franchise world. Let's get you to Andrea. You know, no reason to keep talking with me. Let's get you to Andrea and let her run with you on the franchise side. But yeah, and that's the one thing I like I said, I can't take money from someone if I don't feel comfortable that we can make this work for them. And that's a viable licensing or franchising opportunity for that matter.
So you're talking about Andrea Dopkins out of Salt Lake?
Exactly correct. Yes.
Okay. And that I think she said that she has access to deal with over 850 different franchises.
It's 100. Yeah, I think it's closing at 900. Yeah, yeah. So
I mean, it blows my mind, you know.
Well, and that's the crazy thing is that if you realize, you just look around, all of a sudden you don't realize that you're walking into an establishment that's a franchise sometimes. You know, there are a zillion franchises. So
yeah. As I said, I had a couple legal regulations, and obviously, you know, going to attorneys. I know that we have attorneys associated with Achieve. There's a lot of different attorneys out there. How do you recognize who has the ability and who is just putting a rubber stamp on something?
right. Yeah, I mean, truly, it's anyone that is truly doing contract law would know what they're doing. Now, um, with that being said, is if you go the franchise route, you're gonna need someone that's specific to franchise. So the franchise has a document that has 23 sections, and every person that does a franchise, you know, step the number one, the number two, all the way down to 23. They're all identical, and you have to fill in all your information. So you need to know someone that's understanding of how to do that. So that's very specific. On licensing, we give you a license template. We kind of help you. I can show you what I've done on mine. But you still want to go to someone that is somewhat knowledgeable in licensing. We have a couple of them. But by us giving you kind of all the template, it really helps. But you truly on the licensing side, as long as you have a true contract lawyer, most of the points would be covered by anything they deal with on a day-to-day, meaning enforcement areas, terms, terminations, everything. So again, licensing really kind of comes down to not nearly as difficult to accomplish as a franchise ever is.
I have another question. I'm
Sure.
looking at your website and I see what you license. When it comes to content and media, well, I'm a coach, I'm an educator. I've produced a lot of different content in my programs. And, I go out and I look and make sure that no one has that name. Like I've got a book, for example, I'm getting ready to publish next month or this month.
That's awesome. Okay.
And so no one I could tell has that book title or has, my model. And so when I have that book, that's going to be through the Library of Congress, going to have its own ISDN code or number. And so within that content, will that need to be licensed? I mean, I
My
would
understanding
think
is
so.
actually, and I actually have a call out to because I had the same question last week and I didn't know the answer. And I'll find that out for you. So I know pass along once I hear it. My understanding though is with that kind of that classification of a book, I believe that is in essence almost a trademark for that name, is my understanding.
Okay.
I don't know that again for a fact, but that was kind of my understanding. I'm trying to get an answer. So I'll see if I can get an answer on that for you.
And then recently I just had my nonprofit application filed yesterday with the state of Florida. And so the name of that foundation, there's no one else out there that's using that. And so I did do what you said. I did my research, made sure the naming, I can't remember all the websites I went to, but I went to Florida licensing and checked. But since I have a nonprofit now, I don't need to get that license, I guess, because I'll have a certificate of status with the state of Florida that will show that that nonprofit belongs to me. So that wouldn't fall in your preview because you wouldn't need to
Well,
license that.
again, I think again we want to verify this, but the answer, at least from my understanding, is if you wanted to go national with that, then you don't truly have a national trademark. You don't really have a trademark per se, but meaning in Florida, you're probably covered. So if anyone tried to dick with it, you'd be like, hey, here it is, we can cover it. But if it's national, I do not believe that that's applicable. That's where the whole trademark comes in, is it's basically covering your use of that name or whatever it is, entity, intellectual property, across the United States. And again, I'm trying to get all these specifics because you're asking great questions, but that's the parts that I've come across as my understanding. So
I think you're correct on that. I had a friend that in Phoenix had a bar and grill called the Red Onion. And outside of Arizona, there was another chain of restaurants called the Red Onion, and they had to buy his business from him so that
wow.
they could
So,
go into Arizona, not and change the name. And I think that other people have probably other examples that are similar, you know.
right.
The tough thing is, you know, knowing where you can go and you know what you can do with it.
Exactly. And I always say, I would always say, contract a trademark attorney. They'll answer that question right without even charging you. So that's at least good to verify. So Maggie, did you have some questions?
You're muted, hon.
I did have some questions. I'm kind of, and I apologize for stupidity at this point,
You're not to apologize for anything.
licensing and franchising. I've got a couple ideas in my head. One, I've listed the Digital Asset Protection Agency. What would be any different with a franchise than just saying, okay, this group of people works for me over here, this group of people work for me over here? And then I also want to, I'm working on some materials that I want to give or try and sell to schools or colleges as material to integrate into their IT programs and cybersecurity things, and possibly for Cyber Skyline.
Okay. So your first comment about I've got people that work here, work here, work here. Those are just employees of yours then at that point. That's not a true that's not a franchise at all. That's just your company expanding, if I understood you correctly and how you explained that. But for franchising is you're going to replicate exactly what you do right in wherever you are, in your office, wherever you are, and put that over here. And I'm going to have them, not you, I'm going to have them run it exactly like I do every step of the way. Your office is going to look like this. This is how your processes are run. You're going to be very specific with that. So generally, like when you just said about giving your programs or trying to get them into the schools and everything, that would be a license. You're going to allow them to use your intellectual property that you've created and use it in their teachings for some kind of fee, whether it's a one-time fee, whether it's a monthly fee, whether it's a user fee. You could say, I'm going to charge you you need to pay me $5 a head. So if you have 30 kids taking this class, I expect 150 bucks. And you do that and that could be for every quarter, every semester. So it's just a way of, you're not telling them how to use that education model that you've created or the material, but you're going to make them pay you for them to utilize it however they'd like to use it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So,
Okay.
so in my case, franchising then would not make any sense.
I don't think at all, actually. No, franchising first is generally franchising solely is really, for the most part, I should say for the most part, there's some caveats, but truly is just a business, first of all, taking your business, replicating it here. You're gonna make them pay a fair amount for it, and they're gonna pay you every month, but you're gonna dictate exactly how that operation is run, plain and simple. You're telling them every step of the way. Licensing is you can do the same thing. I'm going to replicate it here. Here's the material. You're going to pay me a fee. Do with that what you want with that information. And hopefully, you come up with some ideas. It's like, but I expect some residual. I'm expecting you to utilize that in some capacity so I get some residual income.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a way to guesstimate the potential of a franchise, a specific franchise?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you got to realize, you hit on the head. First of all, there's so many franchises. Someone's out there doing the numbers. There's no doubt, right? And generally a franchise starts with a single entity. And that guy, okay, let's say that guy's turning $1 million a year in a certain area. Well, if I could take that same thing in that same sized area with the same amount of population, I would have to assume that I could make $1 million there as well. So I think the answer to me is I don't know, but I'm going to say basically it's a numbers game. You're going to take a proven commodity, show what they've done here, and say, why could we not replicate that over here and not expect the exact same outcome per se? Now you come into the whole thing of, but you don't want to come in to like ruin somebody's territory, and now you're starting to degrade from one group to the other. But the answer is I'm sure there's some algorithm out there, but I don't know what that might be.
The demographics of Colorado may be the same as Tulsa, Oklahoma, the same as Arizona.
Exactly. Especially like if you're now, let's say you're an outdoor, whatever your gig is, it's outdoors related. Wow. We could hit, definitely the Goldens, the Evergreens. We could replicate. I'm assuming Taos would then have to be the same. Most places in Utah would be the same. There you're hit on the head. If you can keep, create demographics that seem reasonable, why would my numbers not be viable there as well?
So you're talking specifically about your type of product, the hitches and trailers and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? I think I'm in a different area. Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm in a different area because literally, if you look at what we do, is anyone that has a vehicle can take advantage of what we offer, right? So I'm not so constricted to that, but I definitely am better off in the areas where there's a lot of boating, there's a lot of camping, a lot of mountain biking or biking in general. So you're correct. There's definitely different areas of the United States that are going to adapt well to my product or program better than others, for sure.
I have another question. I know back in July of 2019, I was working on building out a course for HR professionals, and there's this book called The Gig Economy, and it said that by 2020, that 40% of the workforce would be switching to starting their own business. Well, I was trying to think, how in the world is that possible? Because we're not there. Well, then March 2020, we had the Great Resignation, COVID happened. And there were a lot of businesses that started, and there was a 40% growth over this time. And so my question to you is, if someone's thinking about getting into a franchise or licensing something, is, the growth, ongoing? Is it saturated? What are the areas to really, maybe target and focus if you're thinking about getting licensing or a franchise? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I think that's one that kind of coming back we were talking about earlier. I think there's definitely research involved, right? Well, let's just take mine. If someone's interested in licensing the Hitch Corner, my first thing is I would, and I live in let's say Raleigh, North Carolina. Well, the first thing I would start doing is let me check out hitch businesses, truck accessory businesses. What do I have here that I'm already going to be competing with, right? First thing they're going to find out is that there's obviously U-Hauls around. So you're going to have some battle with the trailer hitches potentially. But we have that here as well. So it's just a matter of finding out what else is out there. How saturated is my market? And then all of a sudden you might realize, well, I've got Raleigh, which is you know, I've got this here, but there's also Durham that's right up the road, and they don't have much at all. It's only 20 minutes away. So now I could still pull from there. So I'm getting, you know, increasing my circle of my radius of help, so to speak, as I call it. But there could be, but that changes on the product. So I'm trying to think of another good example. Let's just say, let's make it easy since we're talking about McDonald's. I want to be a McDonald's guy, and I'm in Raleigh. Well, shit, let's all of a sudden I realize we have 20 McDonald's. You know, it's like, but oh, wait a second, Durham doesn't have McDonald's. They probably do, by the way. I know they do, but maybe that's, I mean, I still love McDonald's idea, but I'm not going to go here. I'm going to go there. But that may not be feasible for some people, right? So it might be, well, I have to move 100 miles away to make one that I believe is going to be productive. It also, the big thing with, let's just stick with franchises real quick. The nice thing about franchises is those guys have done a ton of work telling you all that stuff. But now, if you want to bring your own model to the franchising world, that's when you need Andrea Dobkin, because she'll put you in line with someone that will really help you run the numbers and really help figure this out, as well as, okay, this is what it's going to cost. So what is this going to mean that we need to charge these future franchisees to come in? And then you sit down and say, would you pay that? And that person might go, no. And it's like, well, maybe we don't have the best working model here. Then. Maybe we don't have the product that we believe we have. And that's what it comes down to, right? It's, you know, is it a service that's viable?
So
but
essentially, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Keep going. No, you're good. Keep going.
So essentially, I'm putting my professor hat on now. When I taught college students, what I hear you saying is, if you do your research, that if they're considering going into business, one, they need to do a business plan, they need to do a marketing plan, a SWOT analysis, Porter 5 Forces. They need to look into that market and find out who their competitors are, what the barriers of entry are, and all that stuff. And so before they even come to you, or would that be something that you could talk to them about?
We absolutely help. That's, yeah, for my, when you bring me on, our very first thing is, I need a business plan. I need a mission statement. I want to know where we're going, right? Okay. So you're absolutely correct. Now the hope is that you already have a physical entity in place. I'm talking from business solely right now. Because if you're running a business, I'm going to say, let me see your business plan. And then they may say, don't really have one. Well, okay, step one, let's get a business plan. And let's see if that truly relates to what you've been doing in business for whatever it is, 5 years, 6 months, I don't know. But you're absolutely correct. Those are the steps, and that's what we help you with. But my hope is that most of these people at least have some, you know, true basis for what they're doing currently, so we can really then look at that and say, okay, can we truly replicate this over here? And would people be willing to want to replicate that over here? Are they going to utilize it? Are they going to take advantage of it? Can I make money off it? That's really what it comes down to, right? If I'm going to replicate all this stuff, I better be getting money on the backside, because that's the only reason to do this. Not so much in a nonprofit, obviously, but in the real world of, you know, we're here for commodities, we want money. You know, right. I need something that I can prove that I can make on, you know, keep this going for a reason, so to speak. So
a financial forecast, they need to have that.
Exactly. Correct. Okay. Absolutely. Exactly. You hit on the head though, Sonia. It's if you don't have a business, you hit on the head. We're creating a business, right? And let's make sure, but you know, while we create that, we got to make sure that it can be replicated and that it can be proven. That's going to do anything for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Maggie, any more questions from your end? I know that what you're doing in with your cybersecurity offer, that you're looking at all kinds of new ideas.
Well, right now I'm a little confused, honestly, still in looking at, it sounds like franchising would not be something that would be beneficial, but I'm looking at the licensing side for because a lot of what I'm doing right now is building learning materials, teaching materials so that people can, because so many people don't know cybersecurity, or they hear it and go, oh my gosh, trying to get it to where the average person understands the complex, if that makes any sense.
Do you have anything on social engineering? Because I know that that's huge.
Actually, I do know a lot about social engineering. That's one of the biggest things with cybersecurity. It's not just at the keyboard. A lot of things start at the keyboard and end off the keyboard.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I was, my husband, he works, it's like a senior advisor, um, cybersecurity analyst for this big Fortune 20 company in healthcare. And I happened to be in his office today, and I heard they had a meeting with the excuse me, director of cyber, or CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, and they were talking about now with AI, which I remember last time brought that up, you went crazy. But that, you know, they can take your picture and like your voice clip and make a whole video out of it, and you know, draw you in, and you know, they could do all kinds of malicious things, promote products, get you to click on the QR code. That could be, you know, a malicious, it could be, what do you call it, virus.
That's actually what you're describing is actually called a pushing. It's where
Yeah.
they lead you to believe that you're actually filling out something for United Healthcare or the DMV or whatever and extracting your information.
Yeah.
I actually know of a case, I can't give any of the names or anything, but somebody actually stole a car legally because they got all that information, compiled and made a driver's license essentially for themselves, went down to the DMV, requested a replacement title, handed the ID because the face and the name and their records all matched. They were able to have a legal title sent to them, signed as if the actual owner owned it, and were able to purchase the vehicle for nothing, pay a wrecking company to go extract their stolen vehicle and take it home. And there was nothing the original homeowner or the original vehicle owner could do about it.
Yeah.
It's insane what can be done nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely, you know, I was thinking with the franchising licensing, all the stuff that you have to research and stuff that you might fill out, you know.
Well, I feel more comfortable just knowing that Harold's out here and it's on him to figure all this stuff out so that I can go.
Hey Maggie, I'll definitely reach out to you, Maggie, though, and we'll chat so that we can get a little bit more clarification. So we'll get rid of the confusion. So
okay, thank
we'll
you
chat
for
though.
that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We've gone over time a little bit here. I want to respect Harold's time and everybody else's time. Ladies, I appreciate you all coming. This will be up on the YouTube channel probably in the next couple days. But I would think about questions that we all have for those that are live right now and for those that are coming in. Harold, you will be at conference here in 4 weeks, I think it is.
Yeah, I know. We're getting close, right? Yes, absolutely.
But we can book time with you if we have more in-depth questions.
Absolutely. And then anytime along the line, you can always email me at licensing@hitchcorner.com. Or you can always text me at my information's here, but 303-912-0869. And I'm always available for answering questions. And then, like I said, Maggie, you know, we'll get a time where we can actually chat, and it's easier to once we have specifics, we can just narrow down, get the confusion out, and see if it's something that will be reasonable. So,
well, and as a novice from my part, I think that with all the work Maggie's doing about creating the structure.
Absolutely. Yes.
And we know that higher education places cybersecurity. Back when I was getting out of the service, it was coding. I went to Al Collins coding school, and I really enjoyed the pretty girls in the room, but I couldn't tell you anything about coding.
Coding's not that hard.
But I think that if she had a package, so somebody coming out of school could start their own business, I
Mhm.
think that could be a winner for her because
There's
Cybersecurity in a
there's a
box.
ton of possibilities. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a ton of
Maggie.
possibilities for sure.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I said cybersecurity in a box, like a business in a
Mhm.
box.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to get into a lot of details without some confidentiality things being signed, but there's a lot of projects that I am doing that I'm noticing that it is more, I don't want to say I'm a teacher because I don't have a teaching degree.
You
It's more of
don't have to have.
informative and giving people tools to protect themselves as well.
Sounds like you're doing a lot of instructional design work, which you don't have to have a teaching degree for that. It's your expertise, your subject matter expertise is cybersecurity. And that's what
Yes.
you're providing education on, and people in the business, any community need that, because when you start ground zero and don't know anything about it, you need all the resources you can get. So what you're doing's,
Yeah,
you
I'm
need to-
providing, I'm creating, I don't know what you would call it, but books, materials, things where you can learn what the heck is this? And okay, well, what do I do with them? How do I find them? And how do I organize it to protect myself?
Mhm. A business
There's
in
a
a
lot.
box.
There's a lot.
Cybersecurity.
Yeah,
questions.
business in a box.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
guys, I'm going to stop the recording now.
Yeah, I gotta go to another meeting.
Yeah.
But thank
Okay.
you all.
So, Harold,
Thank
thank
you,
you. And I look forward to seeing you all in a few weeks.
Perfect. And Maggie, I'll send you an email. We'll get connected. So
Okay,
And
thank you.
I think next week we have the wonderful Leela Veronica talking
oh,
about
nice. Okay.
all the stuff that she does. So thanks here. I'm going to end this now.
All
Thank you,
right.
Mac. I
Bye,
appreciate it.
Matt. Thank you.
Bye.